Hello dear students, welcome to all of you uh, in the 12th lecture of the course of Introduction to Language Learning. In this lecture we will discuss about the 19th century spelling reforms, and there are different other features related to the spellings, and we will also discuss the development of the dictionary and verb adverb combination, and what are the recent updates on the spelling reforms. We'll discuss all the aspects one by one. In the 19th century, the political, economic and the social changes that the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution introduced uh, and encouraged the Europeans to embrace new ideologies that claim to be able to explain the changes that were taking place. And liberalism, nationalism, romanticism, and conservatism and socialism revolutionized and energized the intellectual scene. And the rail travel, colonial expansion, the spread of literacy, and mass production of the printed word extended everyone's across to the standard written form of English. The Industrial Revolution changes the way people worked and lived their lives. So new words were needed and new words were emerged in that century. And even English borrowed a huge number of words from all over the world. And these words were borrowed from the Latin, from the Spanish, and the French, and so many other languages. And the American English was becoming a language in its own right, with its own rules and spellings. Well, now we discuss about the spelling reforms. A spelling reform is a deliberate, often authoritatively or mandate change to spelling rules, and proposals for such reforms are fairly common, and over the years many languages have undergone such reforms. The term spelling reforms refers to any organized effort to simplify the system of English orthography. Over the years, organizations such as the English Spelling Society have encouraged the efforts to reform or modernize the conventions of English spellings generally, without the success. Now you can see on the screen that there are different further aspects that relates to spelling reform, that English moved further and further away from a phonetic spelling system, syntactic system, and morphological system, and desire for the reform arose, especially in the 19th century. Although we know from Caxton this attempt did begin the earlier. And until the 18th century, there was some concern over whether relating to these spellings in the Europe. Well, now we discuss about orthographies of English. In 19th century, there are standardization and fixing of spelling. In the result, the English spelling better reflects the pronunciation of several centuries ago than that of the present day. There were several reforms were made in the spellings and orthographies. Well-known writers and linguistics related issues, and the linguists and the publishers tries to reform spelling to reflect pronunciation related to phonetics. Now we discuss the other things that the spelling reforms proposals were given, and it was divided into two main groups: conservative group and another was creative. Uh, well, we discussed the conservative, those people that they use the traditional way of English that occurred all over the Europe, and they want the conventional system of English and the spellings that have been used in the earlier times. On the other hand, the creative people and the creative group, those that would extend to replace it, and immediate versus gradual reform. They want the reforms, but not very soon. They just reforms, gradual reforms, step by step, in the form of spellings. Spelling reforms seeks to make English spelling more consistent and more phonetic so that spellings match pronunciation better and follow the alphabetic principles. Common motives for spelling reforms include making the language and easier to learn, making it more useful for international communication, or saving time, money, and effort. Well, there are some principles and the general rules and objects for spelling reforms, and these can be stand only briefly here. To facilitate the acquisition of English spelling, thereby and enabling children and adults to learn reading who are present unable to do so, and shortening the time spent in learning to read, and facilitating the acquisition of ordinary spelling, and effecting a saving of national expenditure, and spreading the knowledge of English among foreign nations. And the last one is to remove etymologically and misleading spellings. Well, in 1906, there were orthographical reforms. You can see over here in the different forms. There are some examples. You can see that just like a word got, good, and the printed, and you can see the different spellings and different words just like that, leave, spell, over, life, what, every. There were different spellings, and that's the reason that revolutionized these spellings, and different reforms were brought to change the old spellings in 1906, before and after, you can see on the chart. Now we discuss about different books, and books were written on these reforms, and these books were written in 18 before 19th century, 1844 to 19th century. Well, the first spelling reformer, that's Ohms, were very famous, and he just organized in 1175 to 1200, and there were long poem that carries more than 20,000 lines, and versified homilies, and are stories in the four Gospels relating to the life of Christ and the acts of apostles. And attempts to represent the way the word were meant to pronounce by creating a new orthography. Well, some people say that he was the pioneer to organize the spelling reforms, and he was the first reformer as well. And he worked on the consonant, and produced the vowels, and the short vowel, and the long vowels, and the diphthong as well, and the numerous Scandinavian words in the text. He worked on it, and the archaic word, the old word replaced into new words, just like in the last line you can see the different words, just like back, day, skill, knowledge, till, until, two words, and these were the different words that Scandinavian that just changed into the new words. Well, you can see over here there are different papers were written, and there are bulletin were written regarding the spelling reforms and the association as well. Well, a spelling mess. The spelling mess created during the first 100 years of English printing, mainly by foreign printers without any knowledge of English, led to calls for standardization of English spelling. The first steps towards this were taken by teachers who began to compile spelling lists of their pupils, of their students. One of them, Edmund Coate, published uh, in 1595 and called it the English, the schoolmaster. And in this paper, he just recommended a lot of things that the changes had to be brought, and different suggestions and different recommendations were given. And it seemed other the trouble became very popular and so highly influential as well. And another one is Samuel Johnson. We already discussed in the previous lecture that he was the one who just compiled the dictionary and worked on the famous dictionary that was compiled in 1755, and quite a few English words still had more than one spelling, such as there, 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 and he decided to link several hundred alternative spelling to differences in meaning, as was already beginning to happen, and thereby help to make learning to spell English even more difficult. And mercifully, he did not apply this to at least 2000 others, such as different words. You can see over here mean, mean, and arm. These were the old spelling and the new spelling you can see over here. Now we discuss the plan and the different plain language and movements, also known as a clear language or a plain English. And the simple plain language here mean it's a simple language movements, and that is utilized everywhere in every uh, field of life. And the origin consumer activism of the 60s and the 70s, an attempt to simplify the language used in legal documents and labor codes and labor contracts and instructions, forms, business contracts, and etc. And gathering strength since late 70s, adopted by the governments, banks, legal and institutions. Even in the army, such type of simple and the plain language was utilized in the as official language. Well, now discuss about the Chaucer's spelling system. Chaucer's spelling system became even more seriously corrupted after 1476, when Caxton returned to London after 30 years on the continent to set up the first English. Well, if we discuss the Chaucer's mentality and Chaucer's work, then we can just view that Chaucer has his own mentality, and Chaucer has made his own reforms in the spellings, and he just composed in his poetry, and all the reforms we can view in his writings as well, just we can see over here. And that is seriously regarded as a corrupted form, and that were composed in 1476. And when Coxton returned, and I already mentioned that the Coxton was there, and after 30 years to the continent, and set up the first English printing press. And at that time there were very shortage of the printing press, and there were only few printing press, and only the prominent were them, and they just composed the books and the periodicals and encyclopedias and so many other books, but very limited printing press was there during the 14th century. And after revolution, then changes have become so we can say that to help him in this enterprise, he brought with him printers from Belgium, and who spoke little or no English, and therefore made numerous spelling errors. For example, any, busy, sight, for, any. There are so many other words and that changed the spellings and misspelled in the 14th century. And the next the phase was the development in the form of dictionary. We can see that when we discuss about the dictionary, then definitely comes into our mind that dictionary relates to the words and the combination of the words and lexicography. A dictionary is a reference book, and that focuses on defining the words, phrases, including multiple meanings. The most frequently used dictionary is a language dictionary, that includes the majority of frequently used words in a language. And language dictionaries are made for different types of users, just for scholars, office workers, and school and second language learners, and bilinguals, multilinguals, monolinguals, and encyclopedias as well. Now we discuss the fixing the language, the aim of historical dictionaries. Uh, we might think that the word definite meaning or its proper spelling can be found in the dictionary, but these pages are a reminder that dictionaries are complicated things, that words often have several meanings and may have several spellings. The dictionaries show us that language is always changing, and the dictionary markers, lexicographers, are there to record the words of their time. Even though some of them hope to set down rules and fix the language forever. You can see over here the examples of early dictionaries that from 1582 and 1604. The first real lexicographer, you can see that Nathan Bailey, and was an English schoolmaster and philologist and lexicographer. His Universal Etymological English Dictionary, that was composed in 1721 and went through same 30 editions. His 1730 that he composed a very massive folio, a dictionary that Samuel Johnson used as the basis for his own dictionary. And Bailey included the etymologies, and there are so many other things that related to phonetics, phonology, pronunciation, and proverbs, and many and woodcut illustrations, and there are so many other aspects that he mentioned, just like parts of speeches as well. And this dictionary based on the word, just like 48,000 entries on different aspects and different fields and related to professionalism. And even Johnson, when composed, that was based on 42,000 words. You can see over here the Belly's dictionary over here, and that was composed in 1730. Well, Belly's the more famous successor, and Samuel Johnson just mentioned, the chief intent of the dictionary is the preserver and the preserve the purity and the meaning. We can see that he basically that relates a lot of idioms in the English in his dictionary, according to Samuel Johnson. And however, it is not enough that a dictionary delights the critic, unless at the same time it instructs the learner, as it is a later purpose that an engine that amuses the philosopher by different mechanism, and it requires the more knowledge, and it is its application. So we can say that there are so many advantages and disadvantages that relates to this dictionary as well. Well, we close here today, and we'll discuss more other things in the upcoming lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.